Manhattan, late 1990s. A man deliberately stepped in front of Mike Tyson's car at a red light. He had been drinking. He had an audience. He thought this was going to be a story he told for the rest of his life. He was right about that part. What he didn't know, what nobody standing on that sidewalk knew, was exactly how the story was going to end. What Mike Tyson said when he stepped out of that car has never been reported anywhere. This is that story. The light was red. Mike Tyson's car, a black SUV, late model, tinted windows, was stopped at the intersection of a midtown Manhattan street on a Friday night sometime in the late 1990s. The city was doing what it does on Friday nights, loud and crowded and lit up in the specific way that makes New York look like it was designed to be seen from a moving vehicle. People on the sidewalks, music from somewhere, the smell of rain on asphalt that had not yet fully dried from an afternoon shower. The light was red and the car was stopped and everything was ordinary. Then a man named Danny stepped off the curb. He was 29 years old. He had been out with friends since 7 that evening, and it was now approaching midnight, and the specific arithmetic of 5 hours of drinking had produced in him the particular variety of confidence that disappears completely in the morning and takes pieces of your life with it when it goes. He was not a small man. 6 feet, broad shoulders, the build of someone who had played football in high school and kept some of it. His friends were on the sidewalk behind him. That was the important part. His friends were watching. Danny had recognized the car 2 blocks back, or thought he had. Someone in the group had said something. "That's Tyson's car, I've seen it before." And Danny had filed that information away in the part of his brain that was still functioning, and the part that was not functioning had done something with it that the functioning part would spend the next several years trying to understand. He stepped off the curb and walked to the front of the car and stood there, arms out at his sides, chin up, looking directly at the windshield with the expression of a man who has decided, in the specific logic of 5 hours of bad decisions, that this is going to be the moment that defines him. The car did not move. The light was red. The car was not going to move for another 20 seconds, regardless of who was standing in front of it. But Danny did not think about that. He was not thinking about traffic signals. He was thinking about the story he was going to tell tomorrow, and the week after that, and the year after that. The night I stood in front of Mike Tyson's car and didn't move. His friends on the sidewalk were quiet. Not the quiet of people who think something bad is about to happen, the quiet of people who are watching something they cannot quite believe is happening and have not yet decided what to do about it. Other pedestrians had noticed. A couple stopped walking. A man with a hot dog cart looked up. 2 women coming out of a restaurant paused on the steps. Danny was still standing in front of the car. The light changed. The car did not move. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. The light was green. The car behind Mike's honked once, then went quiet when the driver noticed what was happening in front of them. The intersection held its breath. Then the driver's side door opened. And if you want more untold Mike Tyson stories like this one, the ones that never made the papers, never made the news, never went anywhere except through the people who witnessed them, subscribe right now and hit the bell. We post new videos every single day. Now, to understand what happened when Mike Tyson stepped out of that car, you need to understand something about the specific situation Danny had created. He had not threatened Mike, had not damaged the car, had not technically done anything that would justify a physical response. He had stood in the street in front of a stopped car and posed. That was all. But what Danny had also done, without understanding it, was create a situation with an audience. There were witnesses on both sidewalks. There were cars behind Mike's that could see what was happening. There was Danny's group of friends who had come out that night expecting nothing more significant than the usual Friday night, and were now watching their friend stand in front of Mike Tyson's car with his arms out like he was daring lightning to strike. Mike understood the situation immediately and completely. He had been in variations of this situation his entire life. Not the specific geography of it, not always a car and a street and a red light, but the underlying structure. A man with an audience. A provocation designed to generate a reaction. The implicit invitation to turn this into something that ended badly for someone. Mike had learned, in the years since prison, in the years since cuss, in the long, slow education of consequences, that the worst thing he could do in a situation like this was exactly what Danny was hoping he would do. What Danny wanted was the story. The night I made Mike Tyson lose his temper. The night I made Iron Mike react. That was the prize Danny was standing in the street to collect. Mike was not going to give it to him, but he was also not going to sit in his car and wait. He stepped out onto the street. He was wearing dark clothes, nothing distinctive, the way he dressed when he wanted to move through the city without being a spectacle. He closed the car door behind him. He walked to the front of the car where Danny was standing and stopped 2 feet away. Danny had prepared for several versions of this moment. He had prepared for anger. He had prepared for a threat. He had, in some distant and not quite serious corner of his mind, prepared for the possibility of violence, which was the thing that made the whole exercise feel dangerous and therefore exciting. He had not prepared for what actually happened. Mike looked at him for a moment, not with anger, not with the performance of restraint that is itself a form of aggression, with something closer to curiosity, the way you look at something you're trying to understand. Then Mike said, quietly enough that Danny's friends on the sidewalk could not hear the words, only the tone. "What are you doing?" Not, "Get out of my way." Not a threat, not a demand. A genuine question. Simple and direct, and completely without malice. Danny opened his mouth. Nothing came out. "What are you actually trying to do right now?" Mike said. Same quiet tone, same absence of anger. The question landed somewhere in Danny that the alcohol could not reach, because it was a real question, and it required a real answer, and the real answer was something Danny could not say out loud in the street. The real answer was, I wanted to impress my friends. I wanted a story. I wanted to feel like I did something that most people would never do. None of those answers were available to him on that sidewalk. Mike watched him for another moment. Then he said something that Danny would remember with complete precision for the rest of his life. "You don't need this," Mike said. "Whatever this is, you don't need it. Go home." Before we continue, drop your thoughts in the comments right now. Mike Tyson just stepped out of his car and said 3 sentences to the man blocking his path. No threats, no anger, just 3 sentences. What do you think Danny does next? Tell us before we show you. Now, back to the story. Danny stepped aside, not dramatically, not with any of the performance he had brought to stepping into the street. He just moved to the side, off the front of the car, back toward the curb. His arms, which had been out at his sides, came down. His chin, which had been up, dropped slightly. He stepped back onto the sidewalk. Mike walked back to his car, got in, and drove through the intersection. The whole thing, from the moment Mike stepped out of the car to the moment he drove away, had taken less than 90 seconds. Danny's friends were quiet for a moment. Then one of them said something, and another one laughed, and Danny laughed too, a little, the slightly deflated laugh of someone who went looking for one thing and found something else entirely. They moved on. The night continued. The intersection went back to being an intersection. But Danny did not stop thinking about those 90 seconds, not because of the fear, though there had been fear when the door opened, a cold, clear fear that cut through everything the alcohol had been doing to his decision-making. Not because of the embarrassment, though there had been that too, walking back to his friends having gone out there for a story and come back with something he could not quite describe. He kept thinking about it because of the question. What are you doing? 3 words. No anger in them. No contempt. Just the question. Asked as if the answer genuinely mattered, as if Mike Tyson had stepped out of his car on a Friday night in Manhattan because he was actually curious about what Danny thought he was accomplishing. Danny had not had an answer on the sidewalk. He had one now, standing at the curb watching the taillights of the SUV disappear into midtown traffic. But it was the kind of answer that arrives after the moment it was needed and contains more information about you than you were ready to receive. He had wanted to feel powerful. He had wanted to feel brave. He had wanted to stand in front of the most physically dangerous man he had ever been in proximity to and not flinch and walk away and tell the story and have it mean something about who he was. And Mike Tyson, who could have given him the dramatic version of that story, who could have made it easy, could have gotten angry, could have given Danny the confrontation that Danny's ego had been building toward for 2 blocks, had instead asked him a question that made the whole exercise visible for what it was. "You don't need this." Danny went home that night and thought about those 4 words for a long time. He told the story afterward, but not the version he had planned to tell. He told the real version, the 90 seconds, the question, the 4 words, the way he had stepped back onto the curb without entirely choosing to. And the thing he always said at the end, when people asked him what it was like to be that close to Mike Tyson, was this: "I thought I was going to see what he was made of. Turns out I found out what I was made of instead." Mike Tyson drove home through Manhattan on a Friday night. He had a meeting the next morning. He had things to think about, plans to make, the ordinary and not-so-ordinary business of his life. The 90 seconds at the intersection did not occupy much of his attention for the rest of the evening. He had not thrown a punch, had not made a threat, had not given anyone on either sidewalk or in any of the cars behind him anything dramatic to remember or report or describe. He had asked a question, said 4 words, got back in his car. And somewhere in Manhattan, a 29-year-old man walked home on a Friday night, having gone out looking for a story about Mike Tyson and come back with a story about himself. That is what happened the night a man stepped in front of Mike Tyson's car. Not what Danny expected, not what his friends expected, not what any of the people standing on those sidewalks expected when they saw a door open and a man step out into the street. Just a question, 4 words, 90 seconds, and a lesson that no one who was there that night has ever forgotten.